The Holy Gospel of our Savior Jesus Christ according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to the householder master, "Did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." The slave said to him, "Then do you want us to go and gather them?" But he replied, "No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first, and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn." Then Jesus left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. And the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers. They will be thrown, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to you, Lord Christ.
What if I told you that one of the patriarchs of the Jewish people, one of the key figures in all of Judaism, revered by the scriptures, was a terrible person? Certainly what it looks like when we learn more and more about Jacob. Now, before Abraham in the scriptures, God was dealing with the whole world. The Garden of Eden is the whole world. The Tower of Babel is the whole world. The flood of Noah is the whole world. Then as the book of Genesis comes into the double-digit chapters, God has a new plan. He picks Abraham. And he says, "This is how I'm going to save the world. I'm going to use you, Abraham, and all of your descendants, and ultimately they'll be as numerous as the stars in the sky, the sand and the sea. Your descendants will fill the earth, and they will be a blessing, and through you, Abraham, all the world will be saved." And that promise gets passed on to his son, Isaac. Abraham, Isaac. And then we begin to learn about Jacob, the third son. Now, Jacob is the problem. Jacob is the key person who really looks like a terrible, terrible human being. We've heard some of his story last week. We hear it this week. Let me remind you how terrible Jacob is. Jacob is the one who was the second born. So the promise should have been Abraham, Isaac, Esau, as we heard this morning, or Esau. Esau, who was the firstborn, who should have inherited this promise and become one of the great patriarchs. But Esau was out one day hunting, and he was out for so long he caught nothing. He came back home and he was famished. And his brother Jacob was sitting there cooking a lovely lentil stew. Esau smelled this lovely stew. And Esau said, "Give me some of that red stuff." And Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright. Sell me the promise." And Esau said, "What's a promise to me? I'm going to die from hunger." And Esau said, "Swear." Or Jacob said, "Swear." And Esau said, "I swear." And Jacob gave him the lentil stew and tricked his brother out of the promise. And it doesn't end there. Because we hear today's Old Testament passage. By the way, I extended it. I added a little at the beginning so you could hear the story of what Jacob did, where it was time for Isaac to give his blessing. Isaac loved Esau, and he loved the game that Esau would hunt. So he said to Esau, "Go and hunt and bring back something delicious, and you and I will share the meal, and I'll bless you." The scripture says his eyes weren't very good. And as soon as Esau left, Jacob's mother Esau, well, I guess both of their mother, but because they were twins, but Rebekah hatches this plan. She's already cooked a bunch of game. She says, "Jacob, come here. Wear Esau's clothes." Esau was a hairy guy. So she says, "Put hair on your arms and hair in the back of your neck so that if blind Isaac touches you, he'll think you're Esau. And take the stew in and say that you're your brother." So Jacob goes into Isaac, and Isaac says, "Who are you?" And Jacob says, "I'm Esau." And Isaac says, "Are you sure you're Esau?" "Oh, yeah, you're hairy. It must be you. And you have delicious food." And Isaac eats the food and gives Jacob the blessing. And we hear Esau's trauma as Jacob immediately gets up and flees, and Esau comes in with some delicious game and says, "Hey, Dad, let's eat." And Isaac says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Esau, your son." He's like, "Oh no, your brother Jacob was just here pretending like he was you, and he made me deceitfully, he made me give him the blessing, and blessed shall he be." Jacob, a terrible person, probably shouldn't even have been included in the story. Isn't it terrible that God is allowing such a deceiver to take on such an extraordinary and important role in Jewish history? The only problem with that interpretation is when we hear today's gospel. Jesus tells this wonderful story about a farmer who plants good seed in his field, and while they're all sleeping, an enemy, can you imagine him on his tiptoes, right? Comes with a bag of weeds. Who has like a bag of weed seeds? Where do you even find weed seeds? I'd like 3 gallons of weed seeds, please. Who sells those? The enemy knows. There's probably a whole enemy network of stores where they sell seeds of weeds. And he comes tiptoeing through his field, throwing the weed seeds as well. And notice how nobody notices. Nobody notices until the good seeds have come up and they're already starting to bear fruit. And this is why. Because those weeds are called the bearded Darnell. I want you to say that. Say that with me. The bearded Darnell. I want you to say it because you're not supposed to be a bearded Darnell. You can turn to the person next to you and say, "Don't be a bearded Darnell." Do it. Yeah. That's going to put it in your head. That's the point of the story. Don't be a bearded Darnell. And what's the thing about a bearded Darnell? That when it grows just like wheat. It looks exactly like wheat. It comes up in the same way, with the same spike and the same color, at the same time, of the same size. They grow up all together. They grow tall. The roots are going deep into the ground and twisting around the roots of the good seeds. And nobody knows what's happening
It all looks just fine until the time comes for the wheat, for the fruit to be born. And the good seeds bear good fruit. They bear beautiful top bits of like wheat with all that grain that you've seen, all that delicious grain. It's good for animals, it's good for people, it's good for bread. And the bearded Darnell comes up and it's got this gnarled old thing that's poisonous for people. You can't hardly touch it. It's terrible for animals, but it is just a couple of weed seeds waiting to grow somewhere else. And they don't know it till the end. And the farmer is, oh my goodness, and his farmer helpers come to him and say, should we pull them out? And he says, no, you can't pull it out. Why? First of all, because there might still be some that are still coming up and you won't be able to tell the difference. And second of all, by now, their roots are all tied together. And you pull up some of those weeds, you're going to be pulling out the good seed as well before it has a chance to come to full maturity. The farmer says, wait until the end, because on the one hand, you can't tell. And even as you begin to tell by them bearing fruit, by then they're so intertwined together that you don't want to harm that which is good. And here's where we can sort of take this frame and go back to Jacob and realize it's actually a lot more complicated than it seemed. We love to point fingers. It's really fun to say, bearded Darnell, I found one right here. Here it is. It's this person, terrible person, horrible people. I know the weeds. It's so delicious somehow to pronounce judgment, the power, the authority, that sense of like, I can tell who is good and who is bad. I'm the one who knows the truth. The gospel is telling us, no, you don't. No, we don't. And in fact, when we look at the story of Jacob, it becomes immediately clear that it's a lot more complex than it seems. For example, let me ask you this question. Whose fault is it that Esau sold his blessing? Is it Jacob's fault? Well, that's how we set the story before. Let's explain why it might be Esau's fault. He valued the promise that little. He knew that Abraham had the promise, Isaac had the promise, he was the one who was going to inherit the promise, and when someone offered him a bowl of soup, he was like, promise? Is it not Esau's fault that he didn't value what was given to him, that he didn't recognize, that he treated it so lightly? Jacob even gave him 2 chances. He said, so give me your birthright. And Esau said, what do I need it for? I'm going to die of hunger anyway. And Jacob said, are you sure? If you're sure, then swear. He gave him a second chance. And Esau still said, I prefer soup over the vast, extraordinary spiritual promise that God has given to my ancestors and which through me will bless the world. And he chose soup. So whose fault is it? Who's the horrible person? When we look at the second part of the story, is it Jacob's fault that he went in? His mother was right there. It was her idea. The mom of both of them. She's the one who says, you know what? Esau's not fit. If Esau sold that promise, then his promise is sold. I'm the mom in this family. I'm going to make sure that this happens in the way that is appropriate and right. And if he can't honor it, why would we give it back to him? I'm going to make sure that you, Jacob, you the one who cares, you the one for whom it matters so much, you the one who I can tell is better fit for this, I'm going to make sure that you're the one who get the promise that has already been given to you. And if my husband Isaac can't see well enough to know that that's true, then I'm going to make sure, led, she might say, by the Spirit of God, that the right ending happens to this story. Because he sold the promise to you, and you're the one who has it. And so you go in. You are Esau now. You do stand as Esau now. You have the promise now. You go to Isaac and stand in the place of Esau. Stand as the firstborn and offer him what he's asking for. And if he blesses you, then the blessing is yours. Whose fault is it? Who bearded Darnell in this story? Is it hard to tell? It's a little bit hard to tell. And that's Jesus' point about the world. Do you secretly wonder if you might be a bearded Darnell? You may not be able to tell. There's people in our world that we have pronounced judgment on. Maybe we should renounce judgment and wait and see. Because Jesus' point is true. It is hard to tell which is which. And the only way ultimately is to see who bears fruit. Who in their lives and by their actions is doing something that glorifies God, that gives something back to God that is valuable. The farmer gets the good seed back. Who in this world, through their lives and choices, is blessing and helping and contributing to the common good, helping others. You can only know when the fruit begins to be shown. And even then, God says, I'm not going to pluck out those evildoers because it could hurt you. Because it might make them have a harder time. Because in some sense, this whole garden is meant to be growing together. What do we do with this story? First of all, we stop pointing fingers. We're not supposed to do that. And second of all, we need to look deeply into ourselves. If you suspect you might be a weed, you can prove you're not by bearing good fruit. The number one point of the story is, it's hard to tell who the bearded Darnell is. And as much as it depends on you, don't.